Hi guys, it's Chill, welcome back. This is What If Naruto Was in the Realm of the Greek Gods. Chapter 1, Exit, Entry, and all the jazz. Yellow, slitted eyes looked around their surroundings. Bodies were strewn about, and the stench of blood and death permeated through the air. The figure, to whom the yellow eyes belonged, was looking about, eyes shedding no tears at the horrible sight. They no longer held the capability to do so, long ago did they dry out. His eyes closed for a couple of seconds in a long blink, and when they reopened, cerulean orbs that looked dead to the world took the place of the yellow eyes. Report, he said firmly in a tone that left no room for questioning, his crimson cloak fluttering slightly in the breeze. Beside him, a man with gravity-defying hair wearing a set of navy blue pants and a Greek vest with a headband over an eye spoke up. Our forces sustained heavy losses. With assistance of Kumo reinforcements, the Hakibi no Kyogyu was successfully detained and destroyed. How many? The blue-eyed man interrupted hoarsely. How many had to sacrifice themselves for the destruction ritual? To the silver-eyed man answered solemnly. The Raikage insisted he be the one to do it. He and another Kumonin named Samue preformed it themselves. By releasing all 8 of the celestial gates, their chakra was enough to utilize the jutsu. They did it themselves. The blue-eyed man mused, surprised, raising a blonde eyebrow. How could only 2 people power the ritual, I wonder? Will power, the silver-eyed nin solemnly answered as though the question was directed towards him. They did it for their country, their brother, their mentor. They squeezed every last ounce of chakra out of their body. I shudder to think of the amount of pain it would involve. Every cell in their body would have been ripped apart by the force of their chakra. A truly terrifying death. Willpower, eh? The blue eyes, blonde-haired man said, wistfully looking at the bloody moon in the air. Oh, how he loved the look of the moon. No matter what happened, it was always peaceful looking. It seemed to soothe his soul. Yes, it was a worthy death, wasn't it? A death fitting for a Kage. Kakashi, the blonde-haired man spoke out suddenly, after a few seconds' pause. Gather the remaining forces. I want every last Shinobi that can fight. We're going to end this war. The silver-haired nin's single eye widened slightly as he heard this proclamation, though he quickly gathered his wits. Yes, he said quickly, bowing. Hokage-sama, he finished, vanishing in a poof of smoke, leaving the gruesome scene behind him and leaving his Kage alone, pondering how the next confrontation would go. The blonde-haired Hokage gave a sigh as he looked towards the battlefield, littered with bodies. Crows and other scavengers had found them already, and the reek of death and decay was now accompanied by the sounds of flesh being ripped apart. Shino was here, I believe, he thought to himself, thinking of the bug user and fellow member of his graduating class. He could have died and I can't even shed a tear over it. Dad, is this what you meant when you said that as long as Shinobi existed, peace could never be achieved? He thought, recalling the conversation he had with his father in his mind. Is this the cycle of violence you knew would always happen as long as Shinobi exist? He was the last of the Kage-level Shinobi. Gaara had perished in an epic battle against the Ichibi no Shukaku. The battle had changed the makeup of the desert itself, whole mountains of sand were moved, and in the end, the Kage had defeated the demon that had plagued his existence for so long. The entire area of Suna had to be evacuated after the battle. The intense chakra of both Gaara and Shukaku still lingered in the desert, trapped in the sand. The chakra caused intense, non-relenting sandstorms to occur and in the end, the area was deemed uninhabitable. The Tsuchikage, Mitsukage, Tsunade, even the old warhawk Danza each played their part. Now that the Raikage had been killed, he was the last of the Shinobi at Kage level in the alliance. It was up to him to defeat Madara, the final member of Akatsuki. It was his duty, to his people, his allies, his comrades, and himself. His destiny was unfolding before him. He wasn't really sure how long he stood there, watching the morbid scene of the scavengers picking apart the dead bodies. They had long ago lost the ability to field enough manpower to bury them, and using Kaiten Jutsu wasn't really an opinion either. You never knew when the next battle would take place, chakra had to be preserved, plus the sheer mass of bodies was just too great. The man watched as a raven swooped down, and plucked a brown eye out of some random Konoha Chunin, and as it flew off. "This will end," he whispered as he clenched his fists tightly, knuckles turning white from the pressure. One way or another, he promised himself. "Naruto," a hoarse female voice spoke up from behind him. Turning around, the blonde-haired, blue-eyed ninja now known as Naruto caught sight of a head of sandy blonde hair. "Samurai," he acknowledged with a slight nod. "Have you all gathered?" he asked, more of a formality than anything else. He was the last kid, there was no one who would oppose him. "Yes, the women," Samurai answered with a nod and saddened eyes. They had been that way ever since the death of Gaara. That, added with Kankuro, who had perished stalling for time while Suna forces had engaged the Sanbi no Kyode game, had almost broken her. The remnants of the Suna forces are ready, as are all the others. The Konoha and Kumo forces have combined, too many were lost in the last battle to form separate battle groups. "Good," Naruto said, closing his eyes and taking a deep breath, almost wincing at the palpable taste of death. "Tell them to begin marching, we're going to retake Konoha. 2 days, 14 hours, 25 minutes and 13 seconds later, Naruto's laboured breaths echoed throughout the cave-like area he was in. The battle wasn't going too well for himself. The remaining alliance forces clashed with the mercenaries, and missing Nin Madara has recruited a little over 2 hours ago. He himself had dispatched dozens of them before he had been forced to engage Madara himself, who had finally showed his face at the battleground after his forces began to get pushed back. That was how he now found himself in the catacombs underneath the Hokage monument fighting for his life. "You have been a pain in my side for far too long," the old Uchiha hissed, his aged features and single Sharingan eye standing out. He had lost his orange spiral mask fairly early on in the battle, a casualty of a Rasengan that had just missed. "I could say the same," Naruto remarked, looking rather haggard. His clothing was shredded, his hair was in tangles, and his eyes were bloodshot. He was utterly exhausted. The continuous fighting of the war had left him in less than ideal shape, added to that 2 days of marching and then a couple more hours of solid combat. Well, you can imagine. "This isn't looking too good," he thought to himself dryly and with a sigh. "I didn't really want to have to use this jutsu." "What's the long face?" Madara sneered at the blonde, loathing clearly audible. "Finally realize you're fighting a hopeless battle." "I suppose you could say that," Naruto replied, almost sounding amused as he steeled himself for what he was going to do next. "I guess I was pretty foolish to think I could leave this battle alive." Madara began to laugh insanely as he heard this. "So, you truly realize the despair you found yourself in?" he asked with glee. "How hopeless your situation is." "Not really," Naruto replied sarcastically, glad Madara had taken the time to boast. It took a lot of time to gather the nature chakra he needed for the jutsu. Hell, he didn't even know if this was going to work. Placing his hands in a ram seal, he activated seal he has been working on for quite a while. "Gar!" Madara screamed as he felt his body go numb. "What did you do?" he screamed, finding only his mouth able to move. "It's a seal I placed around you." Naruto replied, approaching the frozen man making some hand seals. It was designed by my father to freeze the nervous system. I was lucky you didn't notice the seal array, otherwise, I have no doubt you would have been able to avoid it. I didn't actually believe in the power of your Sharingan, it far exceeds anything Itachi or Sasuke could have obtained. Because of this, I think there is only one way to kill you. Finally reaching the last of the Uchiha clan, he placed his hands on his shoulders, and screamed out, Shiki Fuyin, while spiking his chakra, combined with his nature chakra to the maximum. I knew this would be difficult, Naruto screamed as pain racked his entire body. Your chakra is unlike anything I've ever felt. Even with my nature chakra, it is difficult to contain it. It's like a raging ocean, every time I think I have it under control, it rebels. This won't work, Madara screamed, fear lacing his body as he felt his chakra weaken, and his soul leave his body. He felt himself go ashen as he saw the figure of a being thought of as a myth. The god of death, the Shinigami, appear in front of him. You're truly foolish then. Naruto yelled with a last-ditch effort, his chakra spiking to such a degree that every living being in the elemental countries could feel it. He felt all resistance break, and he watched in morbid fascination as the dark, sickly purple-colored soul of the most evil man in history leave its body. It's the end, he muttered as he felt his vision begin to blacken. It seems your eyes weren't able to see everything after all, Madara. The legacy, the destiny of the Hokage has been fulfilled. The Uchiha clan is no more, and all of us shall rest of the Shinigami's stomach as a result. Curse them, curse those damn Uchiha, were his final thoughts as he felt his body go limp and vision blacken, unable to hear the cries of his comrades as they still battled on, fighting to the death and unable to see the world he helped save. The heavens poured down rain that day. The Alliance had won. It had cost so much, but they had won. A new age was entered, and the time of Shinobi soon ended. The harbinger of change had brought peace to the ninja world. By destroying the ninja system. Somewhere else. All Naruto could see was blackness, unable to move his body. Screams of tortured souls rang out throughout his eyes. Where is Madara, he wondered, confused and more than a little bit weary. Something wasn't adding up here. It seems like what the Shinigami stomach should be, but shouldn't I be fighting against Madara for all eternity? That's what the thrice-damn contract said. You have arrived, I see, a dark, powerful voice spoke up, the sound echoing throughout the area. Who are you? Naruto questioned, not trying to sound as freaked out as he felt. I am the being you humans have taken it upon yourselves to call Shinigami. The voice replied in the same powerful voice. It was impossible to tell if there was any emotion present. The voice sounded darker and older than even the Kyuubi no Kitsune. Shinigami, Naruto said, not being able to stop himself from stuttering. Why aren't I fighting Madara? He blurted out, trying to sound polite, and failing miserably. The voice chuckled slightly, though if anything it freaked out the blonde-haired kid even more. You humans are always impatient, it said, though your lifespans are so short, I guess it's understandable. As for your question, you are not fighting Madara because there are several unique circumstances around you. Unique circumstances? Naruto questioned, raising an eyebrow. Like what? He asked bluntly, not bothering to care he was insulting a deity. What worse could he do to him than the eternal torture he had prepared himself for anyway? For one, the voice spoke out patiently, you have already been touched by my power, such an occurrence has never happened before. Not only that, the fates have taken quite an interest in you, I'm afraid I cannot simply take your soul. The voice finished, almost sounding sad at the end. But the contract said a soul for a soul, Naruto spluttered. It wasn't like he wanted to die, but once you psych yourself up for it, well, this was just plain weird. If it wasn't for the fact that his whole body hurt, he would have thought he was dreaming. Well, that and the fact that not even he could dream up something this bizarre. Yes, that is correct, the voice, Shinigami said. Luckily, you happen to have two souls in your body. The Kyuubi no Kitsune gave me a complete set. A complete set. Naruto trailed off in shock, hoping against hope it wasn't what he was thinking. Yes, the Shinigami replied. The Baiju make such nice pets, it mused. Anyway, it said, quickly changing the subject. It could see the image of the Biji as how Spitz disturbed his guest, and if there was one that the Shinigami was, it was a polite host. As you are subject to the fates, blah blah blah, you must remain alive. Here the voice paused, as if unsure how to continue. Here is the hard part, I'm not really sure what to do with you. You cannot return to the elemental countries, that much I am certain of, yet you cannot die. What to do, it finished humming, deep in thought. Now, Naruto was panicking. It wasn't the fact that he could only see black, that he could hear the screams of tortured souls, or even that he was in the presence of the Shinigami. Granted, those didn't help, but they were not the main cause of his troubles. No, it was the fact that the Shinigami sounded, well, normal, for now at least. Oh! The dark voice of the Shinigami said, as though it was listening to someone whispering in his ear. Yes. He hummed, apparently in deep thought. That would work out, wouldn't it? I imagine it would. A serene, decidedly female voice spoke up, interrupting the Shinigami. Amaterasu, the Shinigami growled out. Naruto could just imagine his eyes narrowing in anger, though he still couldn't see anything. Why have you entered my realm? It asked, as if forcing his voice to remain polite, though still grounded out in a channeling tone. Why, to see the human form myself, of course, the female voice replied, still in the same calm voice. Uzumaki no Utu. It said, focusing all of its attention on the blonde Hokage. Naruto could almost feel a set of eyes on him, looking into his soul. I must thank you, the voice said slowly, after a few moments of silence. The Uchiha class was a stain upon the world, a stain we should not have let live on the earth. We've been through this 1,000 times, the Shinigami interrupted, seemingly bored. The accord we passed over 15,000 years ago stops us from interfering in the mortal world, he explained as if talking to a child. You were the one who pushed for the accord in the first place. Others shouldn't have been forced to suffer for his mistake, the female voice argued. Giving those Uchiha a portion of his power, how could we have let that happen, she screamed back. Enough. The Shinigami said firmly. As he said this, Naruto gave a huge start, and he could have swore he saw the darkness around him begin to move in excitement. You dare intrude upon my realm and cause such a ruckus? The Shinigami asked, almost hissing at the end and throwing dark energy around like crazy. After this outburst, the female voice became quiet, as if unable to muster of the courage to counter back. She knew better than anyone else who held the power in the current situation. Intruding upon another god's realm stripped her of much of her power. Now, you, the Shinigami said, rounding on the blonde Hokage who was trying his best to remain inconspicuous. For some damn, unknown reason the fates have decreed you must live. Not only that, they have ordered me to act it as a damn messenger. Me. The god of death. He said, almost sounding like a rant at the end. Okay, Naruto replied, unsure of what to say. At the Shinigami's latest outburst he felt as if all the air had been sucked out of his lungs. The amount of power he released, even if only mildly annoyed, was incredible. I won't go into too many details, your puny human brain may explode. The Shinigami began in a bored tone. In truth, he didn't even know half of what he was talking about, but what the fates wanted they got, that much he knew. And don't interrupt, he added, seeing the blonde begin to open his mouth. In the beginning, when the Creator created the universe, he divided up realms and gave control of those realms to their gods. As he did this, the Creator also created 3 other beings aside from the various gods. They are the fates, the controllers of destiny. They oversee the entire universe, and for some reason, they have decreed you cannot die here and now. They have decided that you will be transferred to a new realm to live out the rest of your days. He finished rather bluntly. Quite frankly, I don't care. Sure beats me trying to figure out what to do with your puny soul. Naruto, the female voice, spoke up softly. This is a truly unique event. The fates have spoken to myself as well. This is the first time that such an event has happened. While I am grateful for your destruction of the Uchiha clan, that is not the entire reason I came here. Ignoring the response of a really from the Shinigami, she continued. The fates operate in strange ways and they try to hide as much information as possible. What they did tell me was this: your elemental ninjutsu will no longer work. What you may not know, is that the elemental gods, such as myself, allow you humans to preform your jutsu by giving you chakra as a sacrifice. Apparently the gods where you will be going are not so generous. She finished, somewhat lamely. This is all a dream, Naruto muttered to himself, eyes bearing a lost look. This is totally not happening. As those words left his mouth, the most concentrated burst of killer intent he had ever experienced hit him head-on. Such an ungrateful child, the Shinigami said in a dark face, and Naruto could almost feel the gaze of narrowed eyes on himself. I truly have no idea why the fates have chosen you as their chosen, and frankly I don't care, but you will never ignore us. He said as more dark energy was gathered around the blonde. Is that understood, human? Why yes, Naruto stuttered, sweat pouring down his face as his whole body shook from unbridled fear. He had always been a brave child, someone who was willing to take on the world. This was something he never experienced. Zabuza, Orochimaru, Itachi, Pain, Sasuke, even Madara never made him think twice. This was something completely different. It was then he truly realized who he was facing. Zabuza has fancied himself a demon, Orochimaru an immortal, Pain and Madara even thought as themselves as some sort of pseudo-gods. This was different, these were heavenly figures. These were the famed figures of all the legends across the elemental nations. These were true gods, and next to them, he was nothing. He no longer had friends and family. Never again would he see his comrades, and he would never see who had lived, and who had died. I understand, he said in a small voice, unlike anything that he had uttered in his life. Even through the Fourth Great Shinobi War, never before did he sound as defeated as he did now. Ha ha, the Shinigami laughed as he heard the defeated voice of the blonde. That's right, little human, fear the despair. You are a failure. I wonder what kind of fools would follow you into battle, they must have been even greater fools. I remember though, it took longer to break your peers. The other Hokages even tried to fight me, as futile as it was. They lost of course, and I ate them. I took great pleasure eating your father in particular, I even think he was still half alive when that old geezer came here with 2 others. Then there was that other blonde, what was her name again? Ah yes, Tsunad. It was rather fun breaking her. She even came with the pink-haired girl as an appetizer. He finished with a gleeful laugh. As he heard this, Naruto clenched his fists so hard they began to bleed. "Shut up," he said, head facing down. "You can ridicule me however you want, but never talk about my fellow Hokages like that." "Oh!" The Shinigami roared with rage, more of his energy spiking than at any time previous. "You wish to challenge me, child? Never talk about them again," Naruto whispered, though his voice echoed loudly for all to hear. The pressure of the Shinigami's energy didn't affect him, this time. As he looked up into the darkness, you could see his eyes glowing a brilliant, bright blue with waves of chakra rolling off him. "Never talk about them," he yelled, his chakra spiking to match the energy output of the Shinigami. "They were far greater than you will ever be." What Naruto wasn't aware of, was what was happening around him. The darkness that had previously encompasses him was dissipating, and the Shinigami's influence itself was beginning to unravel. However, before the 2 forces could meet, Naruto lit up in a flash of blue, and was gone to the world. The Shinigami gave a huge scream as this happened, and the area that the blonde had been occupying immediately was once again covered in darkness. "Pathetic human," the Shinigami muttered as it regained control of its own realm. "And damn those fates. You felt that, didn't you?" The same female voice spoke up. "Amaterasu," the Shinigami said slowly, "you're still here, I see." "Of course," Amaterasu replied, in a smug voice, "and don't change the subject, I know you felt that." For just a moment, his power equaled yours and was going higher. "Che," the Shinigami replied. "That was a mere fraction of my power, of course. If he ever steps a foot into this realm again, I will destroy him." The female voice, Amaterasu, gave a chuckle. "You never change, Shinigami. Why are you even here?" the Shinigami asked in annoyance. "The fates could have just as easily relayed a message through me, why did you have to appear?" "Oh, you know," the Amaterasu replied, almost teasingly. "I really did want to thank him, of course. The Uchiha's strong fire affinity is my fault, and I was rather embarrassed with how they turned out. Also," she continued in a much more serious tone, "I thought I would leave him with a going-away present." With a wink, or at least it seemed to be a wink, the voice disappeared in a flash of fire, leaving the god of death to his own thoughts. The Shinigami remained there, in his realm of complete darkness, thinking. It was disturbing, the power held from within that human. Sure, humans could be strong, almost irritably so, as evidenced by those Hokages as they were called. He wasn't lying when he said he had eaten them. The boy's father had even managed to scratch his fingernail with that blue ball of his. Sure, he had only shown a fraction of his power, but that should still have dwarfed the human's power. The fates are up to something, it thought with a frown. This had never happened before, and frankly, he had no idea what was going on, something he didn't like. Oh well, it thought, retreating back into its deeper domain. It was none of his business now. Who knows where? "This is your second chance," a voice whispered in his ear, nearly too quiet to be heard. With a thud, Naruto impacted the ground, a flash of light marking his entrance. "Ah!" he groaned, face into the grass below. "Please tell me that didn't just happen," he mumbled, voice muffled by the ground beneath him. Slowly getting up, and wincing as he heard his joints give a series of pops, the first thing he did was try to gain his bearings. "This isn't right," he thought, immediately becoming alert. "This nature chakra, it feels so different than it should. Did those things really happen? Seeing a terrain totally different than he was previously in, he gave an unholy scream. He slammed his fist into the ground. Why the hell does this crap always happen to me? He snarled as he stared at the 4-foot-wide crater his punch made as he clenched his fists so tightly they began to bleed. I never wanted to have to order my friends to their deaths. As he said this, images flashed through his mind. Iruka, half his body shredded apart. Kiba, whose face had been torn apart to such an extent, it took his mother and her ninken to distinguish him. Ino, screaming insane as she clenched her head before her own father had killed her to end her suffering. Lee and Neji, who had every single bone in their body broken, with what remained a body mess. They all died on his orders, the order of their Hokage. Honor them, the quiet voice whispered in his head again. He was far too deep in turmoil to think that the voice was something amiss. Honor their memory. Show them what you can become. What honor? Naruto whispered in despair. They're all dead. Souls lost and memories forgotten, how can I honor them? I always swore I would protect them, I swore I would always protect the people closest to me. For the first time in weeks, tears began to flow down his face. The severity of what had happened over the last year of war was catching up to him. They're all gone, he whispered at the sky above him as his body felt like it turned to lead. It wasn't only his mental state that was catching up to him, but his physical as well. Maybe those who survived will be better off without me, I only caused them pain. Sinking back to his knees, and falling face first into the lush grass below him, he could only think of one thing before darkness claimed him. Do I small strawberries? Chapter 2, The Divergence Point. Naruto, the Ichibi no Shukaku has been spotted near Suna. Hokage-sama, how can we ally ourselves with Kumo? They killed my father. Naruto, it's okay, myself and Tsunade can handle this. Yosh, don't worry Naruto, we'll show them the power of our youth. Che, Naruto, you're too troublesome. Boss, I can beat them, have some faith in me. Naruto, it's been a pleasure being able to call myself your sensei, even if you were the most annoying student ever to grace the academy. These voices were going through Naruto's head as his body and spirit were in turmoil. His body would always heal, sure, but his spirit was another story, and right now, it was on the brink in insanity. I failed you guys, he felt himself say, though his voice came out as more of a muffled whisper. I couldn't protect you. You never failed us, Naruto, the voices of his friends argued in unison. We made our sacrifice for our village and our loved ones. It was for the betterment of the leaf, and it was onto you that we placed our faith in. In the end, our faith was well placed. You defended the leaf, and the will of fire like we knew you would. We will always live on in your heart, and that is all that matters. As those words were being said, Naruto couldn't help but let tears fall freely from his eyes. Eyes that had once been so dry, so far gone into denial, had returned to their state of months previous. I don't think I can ever live up what you gave me, he said as light began to flood into his vision. Don't worry, the voices said, fading as the light became brighter, we trust you, always. As those words left their mouths, Naruto's vision exploded into light, and his body slowly opened his eyes. Unknown to him, 3 balls of light also appeared in the flash. That you for allowing us to talk to him, the voices of the fallen leaf ninja said. He really did need it, didn't he? They said before they dissipated. The 3 lights merely gave what looked like a nod as it looked over the improved mental state of the human. Sure, they had bent a couple of rules, but it was worth it in the end. They couldn't have the human commit suicide or anything. The fates weren't above some minor manipulation after all. Outside, Hey, he's breathing more normally. Naruto heard a voice whisper beside him. He knew he was sitting in a rather comfortable chair at that, and he could feel a little sunlight hitting his face, warming it slightly. This is like when Jackson got here. Another voice spoke up, though Naruto was unable to determine the gender of either voice. He was still rather out of it. Yeah, did you hear, Chiron? This guy broke like 12 bones, and they've already healed. Even ambrosia and nectar couldn't do something like that. The first voice said, and Naruto could just imagine the person waving arms around in excitement. He must be really powerful, the second voice agreed excitedly. I wonder who he is. Naruto could hear the voices more and more clearly as he became more and more coherent. Gathering some nature chakra, he tried to determine who was outside, and the threat they represented. As soon as he gathered the chakra, he knew something was not normal. Dozens upon dozens of people could be sensed, some normal people with genin level energy levels, as well as quite with a few with chunin and jonin levels, though they were not as numerous as the genin level people. What the hell, he thought, bewildered. With this amount of nature chakra, I should only be able to sense a few meters around me. I can feel the energy of people at least a kilometer away. Is the potency of the natural chakra in this world so much more potent? And what kind of chakra do these people possess? It feels so different, not like normal chakra at all. If anything, it feels more akin to elemental chakra. I wonder when he'll wake up. The first voice, which Naruto could now tell was male, spoke up. Who knows? The second voice, female, Naruto deduced. Chiron says his body is healed, maybe he just needs some rest. They don't seem threatening. Naruto thought, analyzing the situation with the thoroughness of a kid. This Chiron guy seems to have helped healed me. 12 broken bones though, sheesh, I didn't think Madara did that much to me. It begs the question though, how did I heal so fast? The damn kitsune is gone, I don't sense any of its chakra at all. How is my healing factor still active? Before he could ponder this further, a third voice entered the room, along with what sounded like the rolling of wheels across a wooden floor accompanying it. How is he? The voice, that of a middle-aged man if Naruto could tell correctly, questioned. By the sound of wheels, Naruto deduced that the man was in a wheelchair, though he wasn't fully sure. He seems better, Chiron, the first, male voice, said. His breathing is more normal than before. Oh. The middle-aged voice, apparently belonging to Chiron, asked in surprise. Interesting, I mended his ribs the best I could, but he should still be breathing rather labored for the next couple of days. The breaks were rather severe. He said, humming to himself slightly as he gazed at the body in front of him, watching as the boy's chest went up and down in steady breaths. Thank you, Michael, Katie, you can retire to your cabins. He said, in a tone that obviously signaled dismissal. Naruto could hear the 2 sets of feet shuffle out of the room, and he focused his attention on the man, Chiron, who was the only one left in the room. His energy is at a high jonin level, he mused to himself as he sensed the man and tensing slightly. This man was a lot more dangerous than the other 2. But it feels much more primal than the other 2. It's weathered, extremely so, it feels as if he's fought for his entire life, and then some. I know you're awake, the man spoke out suddenly, breaking Naruto out of his thoughts. You're good, very good, that's for sure, but you're about 2,000 years too early to fool me with such a trick, he said, internally chuckling at his own joke about his age, not that Naruto knew what it meant. Slowly creaking his eyes open, and seething on the inside that he got caught. Was he really that pathetic? He was able to see the man in front of him. He looked slightly younger than middle age, maybe 30 or so, with brown hair and eyes with a rather full beard. The most notable thing was the fact that his entire lower half of his body was encased in a wheelchair, and by encased, he meant encased. It was rather strange looking. He appeared jovial and enthusiastic, but Naruto could tell that behind that facade led a very dangerous man. Living on the cusp of destruction fine-tuned your danger sense after all, and right now, it was screaming at him. Hi, he said sheepishly as he opened his eyes to look at the man. Do you mind telling me where I am? He asked politely. It wouldn't do to offend him after all. As soon as he had woken up, he could immediately tell that he was not in top condition, even though his healing factor had seemingly stayed with him. His chakra levels were pitifully low, and all the muscles in his body ached. In his current state, he would likely not be able to defeat this man. Of course the man, Chiron said politely, looking at the boy with a soft gaze. I am Chiron, a counselor here at Camp Half-Blood. May I ask your name? Camp Half-Blood, he thought to himself, brain filing away the information for later use. Weird name. Uzumaki Naruto, he said, responding to the man's question. Uzumaki Naruto, the man said, seemingly pondering the name. That sounds Japanese, he mused, thinking about Apollo's recent trip to the island country. The man wouldn't stop talking about it. That added with the haikus made him shudder slightly. That means your first name is Naruto, correct? He asked. Yup, Naruto replied with a smile, without a clue what Japanese was. Chiron took a little time to study the boy in front of him. He looked 15, maybe 16 years of age. He had a slightly tanned skin with blonde hair and brilliant blue eyes. He knew from treating him that he was in tremendous physical shape. There's something about him though, he thought a little warily. Part of me just screams to run away when I look at him. It is disconcerting. Could you tell me how you ended up in your condition, Naruto? Chiron asked. He was very curious about this. There were no signs of a fight, and if it was a monster attack, they would have killed him, not left him with such injuries. There were no signs of a trophy in the area either, which pretty much eliminated the chance that he had managed to slay a monster. I don't remember, Naruto said slowly, hanging his head down to look at his feet and mentally applauding himself on his acting abilities. For the first time in a while he was grateful for the acting skills imparted to him by the Spring Country daimyo prior to the war. That is all right, young man, Chiron said warmly. It wasn't that abnormal for those to forget traumatic events, it was a fate all too common with demigods. Tell me, how do you feel? Fine, I think, Naruto replied, stretching his arms above his head. Sighing almost blissfully as his joints popped back into a comfortable position. Everything feels right, thank you for healing me. He said, graciously. Of course, Chiron said quickly. It was my honor, there is no way I could leave you in your condition. I am surprised at the speed of your recovery though, I had anticipated it would take a couple more days before you were able to move about. Yeah, Naruto replied with a forced chuckle, I get that a lot, I've always been a fast healer. He finished, trying to end the conversation as he began to stand up. Chiron didn't press the issue as he heard the rising panic on the boy's voice. It wasn't unusual for new demigods to view their powers as abnormal, there was no need to distress the young man any more than necessary. He was about to change the subject when his ears heard another set of footsteps approaching him. Hey, Chiron, a familiar, at least to him, female voice called out through the morning air. What's up? You missed breakfast. Otherly Chiron replied, catching sight of the dark-haired teen. She was wearing an orange Camp Half-Blood shirt with some faded jeans and was munching on a biscuit. I was just going to look for you. Would you be willing to show young Naruto here around? I'm afraid I have an archery class in 15 minutes. Eh? The girl, apparently named Thalia, questioned before shrugging her shoulders. Sure, I guess. It's not like I have anything else going on. It's dreadfully boring here. So, where is the new guy? She finished, looking around. Right here, Naruto said, somewhat dryly as Chiron moved to the side to allow the girl a better look at him. Hey, you must be that one kid, Thalia said, looking at him with curious eyes. Mr. D was rambling on about a blonde causing him all sorts of problems. Mr. D. Naruto felt himself questioning. What kind of name is that? He asked himself. Don't worry about it. Chiron cut in abruptly. Mr. D is just a little cranky about some restrictions his father placed upon him. Well, I must be off, I'll leave you two alone. He finished, before he wheeled himself away, towards what Naruto presumed were the archery fields. So, my name is Thalia, the girl in front of him said lamely. Naruto replied shortly with a mental roll of the eye. After dealing with seasoned ninja for the last few months, this conversation was laughable. Well, I guess, I'll show you around, Thalia said uncomfortably. The blonde was really annoying her. Sheesh, how cold could you get? Stupid Chiron, she thought to herself as she motioned the blonde to follow her. I feel a headache coming on. As Naruto trailed behind the girl, he took a little more time to study her. She looked about his age, maybe a bit younger. She was wearing a bright orange t-shirt that had the words Camp Half-Blood printed across the middle. She had fairly short black hair and he really couldn't tell her eye color. Once again gathering a bit of nature chakra, he was surprised to note that she had higher-level Chunin energy reserves. Interesting, he thought, brows furrowing in thought as he took careful note of all the sights she pointed out. It wouldn't do to get lost. She's stronger than she appears to be. Her energy seems to be somewhat aligned to the lightning element as well. And there are the basketball court, he heard her say as she gestured over to a rectangular area of paved space with some strange poles with hoops attached to them. A few other people, who Naruto assumed were campers, were playing with some other people, who had donkey legs. I'm not going to say anything, Naruto thought to himself as he caught sight of the pair of unique legs. Nope, nothing. And these are the cabins, Thalia said. They came into a horseshoe formation of cabins. The two in front are for Zeus and Hera, and from the left to the right it's Poseidon, Demeter, Ars, Athena, Apollo, Artemis, Hephaestus, Aphrodite, Hermes, and Dionysius. She finished with a slight pant. Somehow she had managed to say that all in one breath. Okay. Naruto said, trailing off at the end. Those names held absolutely no significance to him. What do they mean? You don't know, Thalia asked, surprised, looking at the blonde with wide eyes. They're the Greek gods. She exclaimed. Okay. Naruto said again, though something in the back of his head was telling him he was in trouble. What does that mean? He asked. Thalia looked at Naruto like he was an idiot. This is Camp Half-Blood, she said slowly. This is a camp for demigods, she finished bluntly. As she said this, Naruto realized what the voice on the back of his head was telling him, and he could only think one thing. Well, shit. End. Thanks for watching.